Hello, you've found the podcast Cults and Kaiju. This is episode 4 entitled A Cult's Champion. I'm your host, Trenton Payne. So to recap, last episode, we talked to a man who says he not only knew about the cult, but that he was the director chosen to shoot the Ultraman-type kids show. We're calling him Isamu for his protection. He was emphatic that it was not in fact a simple club of young people holding hands around a bonfire in the park so much as a cult willing to extort money, threaten people, basically do what it took to achieve their agenda, which is still vague at this point other than building a path from Earth to heaven using the power of the mountain instead of cosmic radiation. Isamu was friends with the leader of the cult, Jimmy Musaki, but said Jimmy was a nice guy, but that Emi, his girlfriend, was trouble, alongside Kazuko, who supposedly photographed the hero when they all snuck into a studio to do it. Well, after that podcast was released, and Isamu called out Kazuko for having a bigger part in the cult than she admitted, Kazuko has since not returned any emails. In fact, they bounced back as if the email is gone. However, before we aired episode 3, I did get a letter sent to me from Japan without a return address. There was no note inside it, but there was a photocopy of the torn-up photo Kazuko said she took back in the 70s, back at that day when they snuck into the film studio to create promotional photography. I'm going to post it later so you can see it for yourself, Rogue Fighter X in all his glory. And I gotta say, I got goosebumps looking at it. If you're a fanboy like me about old Tokusatsu TV shows like Ultraman or Robot Detective, then you have to see the similarities in look and feel just from this one torn photo. Of course, the photo's in pieces and taped back together after being scraped off a brown-stained dresser drawer, but you can still get an idea of what the hero looked like. The colors are silver, black, and a little green, which reminds me a lot of Mirror Man, created by Tsuburaya Productions in 1971. But unlike Mirror Man, the headpiece for Rogue Fighter X looks closer to that of a supervillain. It looks like he has crowns or spikes coming off the top of the head, not sure. I can see where the actor's ears would be crushed though, just like Kazuko said, because there's no room for them. I'm not sure what's going on with the eye slots either, because it does make Rogue Fighter X seem less friendly. A real human head doesn't have eyes so far apart. Plus, I submit that the poor actor couldn't see out of the costume either. Maybe there were hidden slots for the eyes in the helmet somewhere I'm not seeing. A lot of heroes for those shows had some sort of mouth too, but here, no mouth. Most heroes had typical eyes, nose, and at least lips, I think, so, kids could identify with them being closer to human, right? The Mirror Man, the superhero character I mentioned before, with the same color combination, his face is almost smiling at you. So yeah, Rogue Fighter X looks like he might fly into the situation and save everyone, or decide to stomp on everything. Isamu, the director, mentioned that Emi and Jimmy couldn't decide on a specific plot, but sounds like Jimmy wanted the hero to be more ambivalent in his heroics, and that his father, the person up in the sky from another universe, would be the antagonist and not heroic. Plus, Jimmy wanted this alien boy, who by the way was made of black slime and shaped like the letter X, to come down and take the superhero powers from another superhero by murdering him. No kids' show back then would have accepted that as a plot. And I can't help but think that entity in the sky, being the father or whatever, is very similar to the god that the cult was trying to get to, or build a path to, so he could come to Earth. For the cult, this creature was a supreme being. For Jimmy, it seemed more like cosmic horror. Isamu even said Jimmy would see this black oozing creature in the sky sometimes and get all worrisome. There's a lot going on here that I'm still trying to uncover. So back to the image. The costume is great, made from the same strange shiny material as any other heroes of the day. There's some piping down the front, great black shiny gloves. I can't see if there are boots because that part is torn off. And sure enough, just like Kazuko said, there's a small green letter X on the front chest. She said it was supposed to be larger and more prominent, but they ran out of time and someone just carved into the chest and painted it with green paint. I can just see this image as some sort of promotional shot with the title Rogue Fighter X plastered underneath it in bold Japanese script. Imagine seeing this in the back of a trade magazine in 1970, or a version painted over in, like this cartoonish way and then printed on small 45-inch kids' records. They did a lot of those back then. I can envision one of those Sofubi toys that felt like rubber playthings you would throw for a dog to fetch you. Remember those? They were rubber toy action figures. Very popular, hollow. You could squeeze them. This was all back in the 1970s in Japan. I can see Rogue Fighter X being made into a toy action figure in some mighty pose ready to vanquish his enemies. You can see the backdrop looks like a rolled out painting, and there are vague smatterings of buildings in the background to make the hero look like, large like Godzilla. It feels like one spotlight is coming down randomly next to the hero's face and neck, as if it was a mistake on the lighting grid. That kind of tracks with what Kazuko said, and that Nobody really knew what they were doing, so they all just set up whatever lights were around and hurriedly left when they were afraid of being found out. I can see a bunch of nervous cult members rushing in and just flipping on switches and buttons hoping they get the right ones. I know I'm not being very impartial at this point as to whether they were just a bunch of eager young people trying to make something for themselves or they were a maniacal and brainwashed cult with nefarious plans in mind. Maybe it's a little of both? Whatever the case, I really think Rogue Fighter X's outfit is cool, and it sucks that the show never made it into production. Of course, as many of you know, AI is now able to pretty much just create whatever image you want just by using a text prompt. You can type into a dialog box, "Draw me an illustration of a dog chasing a unicorn made of string cheese on another planet," and it'll spit out some sort of image that's pretty close to what you asked for. So yeah, all of this could still be fake and I'm being punked. But one of the first things I did was scan the image into my home printer and dragged it into an online AI detector algorithm. I have no affiliation with this site, but I'll add the link in the podcast. It's pretty simple. You just drag your image into the detector, and after less than a minute, it will tell you if it's fake or not, as in if it was created by AI. Feel free to take a screenshot of the YouTube image I post and upload it yourself. And what was the response from the prompt detector? It said 99% human, 1% AI. What does that prove? Not sure. I've read articles that there are ways around tricking the software into believing something totally fake is real, but I don't know the specifics. Is 1% a margin of error here? Is the image being torn up confusing the detection? No clue. I'm not that technical. I am pretty good in Photoshop, though. Remember, Photoshop now offers AI in their beta program, and it's good sometimes awful. Anyway, I tried to recreate the image as if it had never been torn up using Photoshop AI fill generator tools. I'm going to post those as well in the video. Granted, it would now fail any AI detector because I messed with it so much using AI. But I wanted to see Rogue Fighter X in all his glory. Incidentally, once I was done for the hell of it, I had the detector run through my new image. The AI code said it was 55% human created and 45% AI, which sounds about right given the amount of work I put into it, versus the amount that was already there that I didn't touch. If all of this is slightly confusing, I apologize, but hey, I wanted to be thorough. And guess what? Not long after, I got another gift in my inbox from Isamu, the film director. He actually dug up the film reel where he had recorded the background track for the theme song. I have it now in its entirety in WAV format. Sure, the quality of the sound ain't great, but man, it brings to life Rogue Fighter X even more alongside the photo. I'm going to play it for you now and hold off commenting till the end. So for your listening pleasure, here's the theme song to Rogue Fighter X. 輝く未来ロージュファイター X 導く星希望の翼この宇宙にロージュファイター X 輝く存在友情と絆地球の子供たち守りたるファイター X 愛と名誉我々の英雄枠を攻撃する守りたい未来勇気を胸に光と希望を届けるためにね君立ち向かう我らが英雄黒い次元より呼び寄せられて地球の平和守るためにロージュファイター Okay, something else, huh? Right off the bat, it feels a lot like the music from kid shows of the early 70s. Show themes like Iron King and Fireman seem really similar. Isamu had said that the composer had helped with shows like Zone Fighter. I looked up the theme song to that show, and yeah, I can hear similarities, absolutely. The director said that the composer was younger and got some of his fellow musicians together to make it. I can imagine how excited I would be if someone told me my music was going to be heard by thousands of kids throughout Japan. How disappointed the songwriter must have felt when his big break fizzled in front of him when Jimmy and them disappeared. We've all been there, right? When we think something we're building is going to be big and then it crumbles right before our eyes. I do hope he kept his job at the marketing firm, if that's where he worked. Isamu said they went through and fired anyone that admitted to working on the kids' show. The singing seems a bit timid and not as over-the-top and confident as most singers for these hero-themed shows of the time. But Isamu, the director, said that they didn't have a singer, so the composer had to fill in until they found one, which was probably never. So yeah, the singing feels a bit like a placeholder, but it's still fantastic. If I can dig up the composer somehow, I'll let you know. And as I said before, I'm going to put the original torn photograph up alongside my Photoshop retouching job over the soundtrack. Oh, and I have a Japanese interpreter listen to the lyrics, hoping they would unlock some sinister machinations that the cult had. But they seem fairly vague. They go as follows. The hero who emerged from the dimension of darkness, Rogue Fighter X. Our hero attacks evil with future courage to protect for the delivery of light and hope. Our hero against the enemy from the black dimension in order to preserve the peace of the earth, Rogue Fighter X. The fire of justice reigns in his heart. Our hero attacks evil with future courage to protect for the delivery of light and hope. Our hero against the enemy, friendship, and bonds. Earth's children protected, Rogue Fighter X. Love and honor, Rogue Fighter X cuts through the darkness with future courage to protect for the delivery of light and hope. Our hero against the enemy, bright future of victory, Rogue Fighter X. Guiding star, the wings of hope in the universe, Rogue Fighter X, a shining being. So at least in the theme song, it seems Jimmy got his wish in that the sky being, the creature in the sky, is the bad guy. I mean, that's how I interpret it, because it says the enemy is in the black dimension. And since the boy that comes to Earth in Jimmy's version is made of black ooze, then isn't his father black as well? Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But I kind of think Jimmy's version, while confusing to a child, is actually kind of cool in the sense that Rogue Fighter X was defiant, didn't want to be a bad guy, but he was willing to kill the superhero because he thought he could do his job better. Because, of course, he was a villain, so he thinks like a villain. Take out your opponent and grab his stuff. Then go on to be a hero and do good deeds with it. So what do we have so far? A bunch of people that were in some sort of group that liked to meet in the woods. They had some zany ideas about how to get God to come down from heaven. Many of them worked at an ad firm where they decided to make a kids show, started making it on the sly, and then it all went to hell when Jimmy disappeared. Whereabouts unknown. I keep thinking about what the director Isamu said about Jimmy seeing the villain, or God or whatever, up in the sky from time to time. I hope this isn't the end of the story, because I have so many questions. Also, I'm crossing my finger that the director keeps digging in his basement for the bits of trailer that Emmy and Jimmy pieced together as well, hoping it gives some insights of just what the hell was going on back then. Okay, signing off for now. This has been episode 4 of Cults and Kaiju. I'm your host, Trenton Payne.